Hello, my name is Marietta Candler, and I am the interim division chair, and I will also be teaching quite a bit of content this semester as well. The first things first, you need to go to the nursing practicum folder. You need to go to week 1, and you need to go to the APA folder and download the APA PowerPoint so you can follow along. Number 2, you need to have your APA manual, and it should look like this. It should be blue with this pretty green coloring. Also, if you have some post-it notes, if you would get them out, and you can mark pages as we go through them, so you'll always have a reference and you can go directly to that page. You can see how anal I am. My post-it notes actually match my book. Pretty sad. Alright, so without further ado, I'm going to get off here and then I will record the APA content. This is not that difficult. It is different. Most of you are used to MLA. MLA is what they use in the Englishes, the maths, but in the sciences, in the social and the behavioral sciences, and in psychology, we use the format APA. We have gotten more and more used to using APA on this campus so that the Success Tutoring Center can also help you with APA, but your best friend is, ta-da, the APA manual. We can also help if you have any questions or concerns. This is going to be very important that you use proper APA. We're going to expect it in your discussion post. We're going to expect that you're documenting things correctly, that you're just not copying and pasting things in. Certain assignments will ask you to put it in APA format. So if it doesn't, if APA format is new to you or strange, make sure that you're looking at this. All right, so I'm going to get off here. Pull up the APA PowerPoint. So if you, again, make sure you have those things before we get started. All right, APA 101. Okay. Our objectives are that we're going to identify the content and organization of an APA paper. That we're going to describe many of the mechanical aspects, including quotations, headings, and citations within the text. That we're going to describe the components of the common references included in referencing of electronic media. We're going to identify common mistakes, and then lastly, identify tips to write a successful paper. So, what is APA? Well, this first came out a long time ago, back in 1929. And originally, what happened was a group of psychologists, anthropologists, and business managers got together and said, hey, we need some writing rules. When we are publishing things in professional journals, we all need to be consistent and uniform. We need to make that reading easier. And so they adopted what was called the APA format. And this again was later adopted by the social and behavioral sciences, was how we got involved. So it is the predominant language of our professional culture. It is a manual. It's a manual style of writing. It is your friend. It is not your enemy. It is used by almost all nursing schools across the country and internationally, so it is known. If you go in for your BSN, you go in for your MSN, you will write mega papers, and you will write them in APA format, so this is getting you ready. It is used by a predominance of nursing journals. If you get on up in your career and you start publishing to nursing journals, professional nursing journals, then you will have to write it in APA format. Now, what happened back in February of 2007, there was a revision task force that met, and they determined there were some revisions that were needed in 7 areas. Page 4 of your manual book, if you'll turn to page 4, you don't have to necessarily mark this one. It talks about the organization of the 6th edition. And you'll see here they go chapter by chapter, and they describe for you how they changed each chapter, what they added. So I'm not going to sit there and read that to you. You can read that, but make sure that you do just skim through that because it does tell you how they reorganized the whole 6th edition. All right, ever heard of the word plagiarism? I'm sure you all have. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, plagiarism is plagiarism. Page 15 of your book, which you would need to mark that as plagiarism, which I have marked mine at the top, gives a definition of plagiarism and self-plagiarism. It says plagiarism, researchers do not claim the words and ideals of another as their own. They give credit where credit is due. Quotation marks should be used to indicate the exact words of another, even if they misspell something. Each time you paraphrase another author, summarize a passage, or rearrange the order of a sentence, or just simply change some words, you need to give credit to that source. And it goes on and gives you a little example of paraphrasing. Down here, it says, as stated in the 6th edition of the publication manual of the American Psychological Association, and then you'll see in parentheses they have APA, that's the author, comma, and the year, 2010. So that is how you would paraphrase and document and give credit to a paraphrase. On page 170, it talks about plagiarism again. It says, as stated in Chapter 1, authors do not represent the work of another as if it were their own. Whether they're paraphrasing, quoting directly, or describing the ideal that influenced your work, you have to give credit to the source. And it gives you an example of appropriate citation, again, up on the figure 6.1 on page 170. Self-plagiarism says, whereas plagiarism refers to the practice of claiming credit for the words and ideals and concepts of others, self-plagiarism refers to the practice of presenting one's own previously published work as though it were new. So that's a no-no. Then it goes down here about quoting and paraphrasing, and you'll need to read through that. And it tells you the difference of whether you're quoting or paraphrasing. It tells you if it's greater than 40 words, then you have to incorporate it into the text and enclose the quotation with double quotation marks. If the quotation appears in mid-sentence, in the passage with quotation marks and cite the source in parentheses immediately after the quotation marks. And it gives you an example of both of those and how to do that. Again, if it's over 40 words, gives you an example of how to do that. You double indent it, and that would be on the left-hand side. And then at the end, you put the author, comma, year, comma, and the page numbers. That is a very important part to mark, so you want to make sure that you are marking pages 170 and 171. So let's go back to your PowerPoint here. It says, plagiarism is claiming another's words or work as your own. When writing a paper or even posting in the discussion, it's essential that you keep plagiarism in mind. Sometimes plagiarism is accidental, but that is why knowing how to cite the reference in the text is essential. So give credit where credit is due. Quotation marks and page and paragraph numbers should be used to indicate the exact phrases and words. So if you take something word for word, you're going to put in quotation marks, you're going to put the author, comma, year, and the page or paragraph number. Now, why am I saying paragraph number? Because occasionally you will find an article online that does not have page numbers. So you have to count down the paragraph number and cite that. Give credit to the source. Plagiarism is a violation of professional ethics and will result in a failing grade every time. No excuses. Look at the example again at the bottom of page 15 and 170 to help you as well. It's on the bottom of page 15 and 70, 170 at the top. So in review, if you can get this part down pat, you will be in wonderful good shape. If it's a direct quote, then I'm going to put it in what? Quotation marks, followed by, in parentheses, the author, comma, year, comma, and page number or paragraph number. If I am paraphrasing, rewording, switching the sentence around, changing one or two words, then I still have to give credit to that source. And it is simply parentheses, author, comma, year, into parentheses. So that is the way that you have to do it. The difference between the direct quote and the paraphrase is you have a page number or paragraph number if it's a direct quote and it's in quotation marks. So you need to remember that. You need to remember that. All right, let's look at the structure of a manuscript or a paper. Your paper is going to have a title page, a text or a body, a reference page. It may contain an appendices if needed. Now, we are not going to include an author's note or abstract. It does talk about that in your APA book, but at this level, you will not have to do that. Now, if you go on for your BSN, your MSN, you will be required usually to do author's notes and abstracts. The title page is very important, and this will include what we call a running head, page number, the title of your paper, the author's name, and the institutional affiliation. Now, your book does a wonderful thing in Chapter 2. It gives you an example of a whole sample paper. So starting on page 41, and you do want to mark this, and I've got example written at the top of mine, page 41 through 51. And also on page 23, 2.01, it talks about what should be in the title as well. So if you are looking here at page 41 in your APA manual, it gives you an example of what a title page would look like. Now again, we're not going to do the author's note or the abstract, so ignore that part. So you will see here that you have a running head, you have a page number, you have a title, you have the author's names, and you have the institutional affiliation. So let's talk a little bit about the running head. The running head is basically an abbreviated title, and that is always at the top of your title page and each page of the text thereafter. The running head should be a maximum of 50 characters. Now that includes letters, spaces, and punctuation, so you have to count that out. Now if you look on page 41, the title is centered and it says Effects of Age on Detection of Emotional Information. Now you can see here they dropped some of that and shortened it for the running head, Effects of Age on Detection of Emotion. So it has to be shorter than the title and it's an abbreviation of your title. So you can see the words running head as well. Notice that the R is capitalized and the H is always lowercase. Pay attention to that. And then your running head, whatever your title is actually in all caps. So I've given you an example here. If the title of your paper is going to be Using American Psychological Association Format in Nursing School to Write Successful Papers, then an example of your running head could be Using American Psychological Association Format. And see how I decrease that way down? I've got it in all caps. Now, if I'm getting ready to write my running head, it's going to be 1/2 inch from the top of the page. So I go down 1/2 inch, I write the word running head, capital R, lowercase h, colon, space, all caps, and my running head. Page numbers are located at the top of the page and they are right aligned. The title page is actually number 1. So put your page numbers on all pages of your paper. So you feel good after you've done the title page, you've actually got one page done. The title page, looking at the title itself, the title should be typed in upper and lowercase letters. It is centered between the left and right margins. And it will be in the upper half of your page, which is kind of weird. Some people want it centered on that first page, and it's not. So you go down 1/2 inch, you write your running head. From there, you skip down 6 lines from your running head, and you start your title centered. The recommended length for a title is no more than 12 words. Do not include abbreviations in your titles. So you have the title, again, that should summarize the main ideal and should grab a reader's attention. So title page is the author's name also and the institutional affiliation. So in your bylines, you're going to write their first name, their middle initial, and their last name. If no initials given, then don't put one. Omit all titles such as LPN, RN, Doctor, Miss, no titles. Institutional affiliation is simply the college they're affiliated with. So an example of what we've talked about, putting it all together so far, using American Psychological Association format in nursing school to write successful papers. That was our title. Jane P. Doe. University of Arkansas Community College at Batesville. I cannot write out UACCB. It has to be University of Arkansas Community College at Batesville. So now here's an example of a title, a byline, and the institutional affiliation. And all of this is double-spaced. So the title page, when we're looking at an example, again, we're going to skip down 1/2 inch from the top, and we're going to start our running head. We're going to have a capital R, a lowercase h, a colon, space, and then using American Psychological Association format. That's my running head. I'm going to skip down 6 lines, and I'm going to do using American Psychological Association format in nursing school to write successful papers, my title, double space, Jane P. Doe, double space, University of Arkansas Community College at Batesville. So this is what a title page would officially look like. And of course, don't forget, it is your first page, so you number it number 1. All right, so everybody should be familiar with how to do a title page now. Next will come the text or the body. The preferred typeface is Times New Roman with 12 font. So when you write for these major journal publications, they're going to want it in Times New Roman 12 font. Occasionally, they will decrease it to a smaller font depending upon the journal, but for submission of that journal, you are going to do it like that. All right, double space between all lines in a paper. That's a good thing. That means you get to count spaces. Never use single spacing in the text of a paper except in tables and figures. So this is one we do not single space, we double space. We want to use the function of your computer to make an automatic header for each page. But remember, and I didn't talk about this earlier, the header will include the abbreviated title and page number, and it will be 1/2 inch from the top of your paper. The actual words running head are only on the title page and not the rest of the paper. So let's go back to page 41 in your book, the sample paper. And we have our title page here on page 41. We're not going to do an author's note or an abstract, so go over to page 42, and that starts page 3. With yours, it will be page 2. Do you see what they did? They went down 1/2 inch, and they've got the running head, but they left off the words running head from there on out. They just actually put the running head. Effects of age on detection of emotion. And if you look at every page thereafter, it is on all your pages. So you can see that that's an example. Even on your reference pages, your running head is on there. So you number each page and you put whatever your running head is at the top of each page thereafter. Then you go down 1/2 inch from there and you put your title. If you look on page 42, then you put your title. Then you double space and then you start writing your paper. Of course, you always have an introductory and summary paragraph, even though you don't actually write the words introduction and summary. In APA, it is assumed your first paragraph is your introduction, your last paragraph is your summary. All margins are 1 inch. Do not justify your margins or your lines. That means don't line it up to make it look pretty to where it's skipping 2 or 3 spaces between some words. It is all right for the right margin to be uneven. Do not divide words at the end of a line. Do not use the hyphenated function to break up words at an end of a line. Go to the next line. Indent the first line of a paragraph, typically the tab key or 5 spaces, which is appropriate. Remember, on the title page, we actually again wrote out running head. When you actually start your text, do not include the words running head. We looked at page 42. And you can see how the word running and head were actually left off, and just the abbreviated title is being placed flush and in all caps. All right, now let's talk about the text or the body and how to reduce bias. If you look on pages 73 through 77, it talks about how to reduce bias in a paper, and I've just got the word bias written at the top of mine. And what this is talking about is the choosing of certain words. If you're referring to a gender, it says, when to use the correct he and she, and, is it police officer or policeman? And so it tells you a lot about that. On page 74, goes into sexual orientation. If you're talking about, lesbians, gay men, bisexual women are referred to homosexual, one is referring to people who identify this way. It says lesbian, gay, and bisexual refer primarily to identities and to cultures and communities that have developed among people who share those identities. So it says, as such, then, the terms lesbian, gay men, and bisexuals are more accurate than homosexual. Furthermore, the term homosexuality has been and continues to be associated with negative stereotypes and the reduction of people's identity to their sexual behavior. Gay can be interpreted broadly to include men and women, or more narrowly to include only men. So it just gives you, a reference list if you need to refer back to certain sexual orientation, what is the most appropriate words to use. Same thing with racial and ethnic identity on page 75. If you're referring to Hispanics, different minority groups, it goes over how they prefer to be called and what is the proper term as well. If you look on the top of page 76, for example, it says the term Asian or Asian American is referred to the older term Oriental. So there, if you're referring to someone who's Oriental descent, then you would call them Asian or Asian Americans. Talks about people with disabilities, what you call them. Referring to age, how do you refer to age appropriately in a paper? So make sure that you are looking at these things before you actually, if you're in doubt of how to refer to a certain group and reduce bias. Grammar and usage starts on page 77 through 86. This goes over verbs, when to use action verbs, when to select the correct tense, subject-verb agreement, what pronouns are appropriate to use when, what modifiers are appropriate, adverbs, parallel construction. So be sure to read over page 77 through 86 if grammar and usage is not a strong point for you as well. Now, professional and formal language is expected at all times, regardless of posting and discussion or submitting a paper. You are at a professional level, and we expect you to write at a professional level and document at a professional level. There are many correct and incorrect examples of grammar and usage in Chapter 3, so refer back to this chapter with any questions that you have. Punctuation and abbreviation is covered in Chapter 4, beginning on page 87. So Chapter 3 and 4 are two very detailed and excellent chapters to help guide you in writing professional papers. If in doubt, look. So now let's go to headings on page 62. Headings. On headings, these help improve and organize readability of your paper. Do not use a heading for the introduction or summary again. We talked about that earlier. When you start writing, that is presumed to be your introduction paragraph. When you end it, that is presumed to be your summary paragraph. The number of levels of headings needed depends upon the length of your paper. If only one level headed is needed, then use level 1. For a paper with 2 levels needed, then you use level 1 and 2, and so forth. So let's look on page 62 at the bottom. I also have it here on the PowerPoint. If you're using a level 1, we have 5 choices here, levels 1 through 5. A level 1 heading is centered, bold-faced, upper and lowercase heading. A level 2 is flush left, bold-faced, upper and lowercase headings. 3 is indented, bold-faced, lowercase paragraph heading ending with period. 4 is indented, boldface, italicized, lowercase heading ending with period. Level 5 is indented, italicized, lowercase paragraph heading ending with a period. So you can see there are levels 1 through 4, and I give 5, and I give you examples of each one of those. So it's pretty important that you know how to use these and to follow these. It also gives you some examples on page 63. Of some different level headings there and how they should follow. Now, if we go back and look at our sample paper on page 41, let's go over here to where we have some headings. And if you go with me on page 44, look on page 44, there's the word method. What level heading is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? You should have picked level 1. the word method, because it's centered, it's bold-faced, it's upper and lowercase heading. What about the word participants? That's a level 2 because it's flush to the left, it's boldface, and it's upper and lowercase headings. Materials and procedures, again, a level 2. Then if you get over here on page 45, you have it indented, it's boldface, ending with a period. So that would be a level 3. So you can see there, this one went up to a level 3 when it was writing. So it depending upon the paper, how much levels you will need. Again, for anything that you're going to write, probably level 1s are going to be plenty, and occasionally go to a level 2. But you'll probably never make it past level 2 headings. Now, when you get up on grad school, you'll be writing large papers, and it is potential of going up to level 5s. All right, what about one of the most important things, citing your references? Very important in the text. On page 177 in your book, let me see if I got the word reference up here. I'm getting mine all tangled. All right, page 177, table 6.1 is a good reference to go back and look at. Also on page 176 starts out talking about working references. If you look on page, again, 177, it will tell you, for example, if you're doing, and we will be doing a lot of things with a parentheses format, and if it's the first citation in the paper, it gives you an example there, Walker, comma, 2007. And that is common. Subsequent citations in the text can be Walker 2000. So it just depends upon how many authors you have and how you do that. But we do the parenthetical format. It tells you about secondary sources on page 178, classic works, personal communications, how to do those. And then it starts on how to actually put your reference list on page 180. So it tells you here when the work has no author. Also, that is important because a lot of works do not have authors. You want to cite the first few words of the title or publication and the year. And it talks about that on page 176. So for an example, if the first few words of the title was AIDS care in dying patients, AIDS care, and you want to put that in quotations marks, comma, and the year, 2006. Personal communication is cited in the text but not included in references. An example, L. Bradley Springer, personal communication, November 18, 2009. Okay. So personal communications are not cited in the text, but they are included in the reference. L. Bradley Springer, you put their name, comma, the words personal communication, comma, and what date you actually personally communicated with them. Reference pages, there's a good example on page 49. That would be in your sample paper. So let's go back to your sample paper. And it has the word reference starting on your reference page. You can see here, they numbered the reference page. They have the running head on the reference page. They went down 1/2 inch. They wrote the running head, then another 1/2 inch, and they wrote the word references centered, upper and lower case. Then they started their reference list. They did it alphabetically. You also do not indent the first line. You indent the lines thereafter. Okay. All citations that you include in your text are included in your reference page except personal communications. Begin each entry flush again with the left margin, indent subsequent lines. And one of the things that's different about APA that's kind of hard to understand is that we don't capitalize all of the words. And people are used to capitalizing all the words in an article. So example, let's look at Anderson there. We have Anderson, comma, A period, K period. So use their first and middle initial if you have it. So their last name, comma, first, middle initial, period, space, parentheses, the year, period, and then you write out the name of the article. This was effective influences on the attentional dynamics supporting awareness. You can see there that they capitalize the A, but every word thereafter is lowercase, and that's different. So you would do it all lowercase after that. Now, the actual journal article is in italics. So you always have to have something in italics. Every entry should have something in italics or you didn't do something right. So the journal article is italicized. Now with that, it is all upper and lower case. So it would be Journal of Experimental Psychology, and Journal Experimental Psychology is all capitalized, :general. Then the volume is italicized as well, and then you unitalicize and put your page numbers. Then you'll see here they've got something called the DOI number, and now we'll talk about what a DOI number is here in just a little bit. The next example, if there was more than one article, more than one author, you would list them all. Then at the end, you would put the year 2003. Then you would write, they wrote the name of the article again, uppercase for the first word, all lowercase for the rest of the words. Then your journal, Journal of Neuroscience, volume 23. And then just the page numbers. This one did not have a DOI number. You do not give web addresses for PDF files obtained from electronic copies of print journals. If it's printed journal and it's in PDF, then you can treat it like you would document it like it was an actual journal. Limit the use of lay and non-professional internet sources. Wikipedia is a no-no. Make sure that it's just not someone out there giving their opinion. It has to be a professional site when you're using these, whether it be for the discussion or whether it be for a paper. Turn off your hyperlink. That means blue and underlined. It should not be blue and it should not be underlined in the reference list. Give complete uniform resource locator, the complete URL for documents, not just the home page or the organization. And here's an example of the complete URL. The DOI, it talks about that on page 188 and 189. And it stands for Digital Object Identifier. And this provides a means of persistent identification for managing information on digital networks. DOIs begin with a 10 and contain a prefix assigned by that organization and a suffix assigned by the publisher, separated by a slash. These should be included whenever available. You want to cut and paste to avoid errors, and both print and electronic sources. Generally, it's on the first page of an article. If you look down at the bottom of page 189, it gives you an example on figure 6.2. You can see here is a journal from the Experimental Psychology. Tells you the volume and everything. And then if you go over here, it's copyrighted 2008 by the American Psychological Association. And then you can see there is a DOI number. The DOI numbers are numbers that you can push, plug into the internet in case that site has moved. Have you ever went to a site and then it pops up, oop, this site has moved, or it's not available, or you can't find it? If there's a DOI number and it has moved just to a different location, you can trace it by putting in that DOI number. Also on pages 198 and 199 also talks about DOI numbers. All right, spelling. Spelling is something, again, that you need to make sure that you are paying particular attention to. You want to use spell check, proofread your papers and your discussion before posting them. And if you're not a good speller, then have someone proofread it first. Writing style. On pages 65 through 70, goes over writing style. You need to mark those pages as writing style. It tells you how to aim for a clear, concise, logical communication when you're writing and to be effective. Sample paper, again, is page 41 through 51. Be sure to read over those and refer to that often. I still have to refer to that. Remember, there will be no author's note or abstraction will be required, abstracts. So what's our assignment? You do have a quiz. And you will have to complete the quiz located in Nursing Practicum 2 in Blackboard under Quizzes and Exams. You have between 1:13:15 to 1:16:15 to take the quiz. Your actual PowerPoint will tell you by what time. The traditional and online times vary a little, so you'll need to look at that. You will need Respondus Lockdown Browser installed on your computer before you can take this quiz. Now, you will not have to go through the webcam. The online students, when they take their exams at home, have to use the webcam, but for this one, you will only have to use Respondus Lockdown Browser. So if you have not installed that, you will need to get that installed pretty quick. There's a link to it located in your resource section that will take you directly to that to help you download it. All right. Thank you very much. If you have questions, you have concerns, you don't understand something, you please get in touch with me immediately. Last but not least, I have included helpful websites. You will need to copy and paste these URLs into your search engines. You'll find that with most of our things, Firefox works better, Google Chrome. We do have some issues with Internet Explorer, especially in Blackboard. So when you're getting ready to take your tests and stuff, your best search engine is Mozilla Firefox. Helpful websites, www.apastyle.org is an excellent website. It kind of goes with this lower link, and it will actually walk you through a tutorial and a brief guide if you need more information. English Purdue has always been known as a wonderful resource for APA, so I've included it as well. It gives you samples of things you're not sure about. You can type in things that will help you. There's also lots of things out there that helps you put together an APA paper. Be leery and be aware because those sometimes do not, they are all different and they may not include what we have taught you here today. All right, if you have any questions or concerns, please let me know. Thank you very much and have a wonderful, wonderful day.